My name is Chuka, and the moment the bus pulled up to our modest home in Enugu, my life changed. It was my uncle, Chinedu, a man whose presence always filled a room, and whose promises always sounded like gold. He was a soccer coach in Ivory Coast, and he had returned with a caravan. 10 young ivory men, lean and hungry, cleats slung over their shoulders. Chuka, he boomed, pulling me into a bear hug. These are the future of African football. I need to get them signed here, and when I do, you're coming back with me to Abidjan. You'll be my assistant manager. The promise of Ivory Coast, a life beyond Enugu's dusty streets, was intoxicating. For a full month, our house transformed into a bustling hostel. My mother cooked mountains of fufu and egusi, while I organized training sessions, washed their jerseys, and became their confidant. I spent my savings buying them bottled water and charging their phones. I was running the show, all for the chance to leave. The 10 boys, who only spoke rudimentary English, treated me like family, clinging to the hope I nurtured as much as they did. The pressure mounted as Uncle Chinedu had only 1 month to showcase his players. He leveraged every contact, every old schoolmate, until finally he secured a meeting with a major club director in Port Harcourt. The atmosphere was electric. The Ivorian boys, fueled by jollof rice and adrenaline, played the game of their lives. Scouts scribbled notes. The director nodded approvingly. It was a spectacular success. A week later, Chinedu returned to Enugu, triumphantly waving a wad of cash and a stack of signed papers. "We did it, Chuka! All 10 are in!" The celebration was deafening. The boys danced, praising God and thanking me. I beamed, ready to pack my bag. "Uncle," I asked, my voice trembling with excitement, "when do we leave for Abidjan?" Chinedu smiled, a wide, unsettling smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Ah, Chuka, that's where the plan changes. The club is handling their accommodation, and my assistant role, I'm keeping that for now. You've been helpful, but I need an experienced hand." My heart plummeted. He had secured their spots, but he had also secured a massive, undisclosed signing bonus. Money, he had told the boys, was merely an administrative fee. He kept every kobo and shredded my promise. The 10 Ivorian players left for their new club with nothing but high hopes. A week later, one of them, Jean-Luc, managed to call me, his voice thin and hollow. "Chuka, on souffre. We are struggling. The club is a disaster. We're sleeping 4 to a tiny room, and the coach is asking for money for basic gear. There's no food allowance, and Chinedu told us the club would cover our expenses." The reality hit me like a stone. Chinedu had collected their entire signing fees, the money meant to set them up, and left them high and dry. He had used my home, my family's generosity, and my selfless efforts as a smokescreen for his theft. I confronted him. "How could you? That money was for them." He just chuckled, sitting comfortably in his hotel lobby chair, counting naira. "It's the cost of doing business, Chuka. They got their contract. I got my cut. You just stay here and be a good nephew." The sheer arrogance solidified my resolve. I had organized them, believed in them, and suffered the betrayal with them. I vowed that Chinedu would pay for stealing the future from those talented boys. This was no longer about my trip to Ivory Coast. It was about justice. The boys couldn't perform because they were starving and unfunded. The 10 Ivorian players, disillusioned and penniless, lasted barely a month. They eventually had to forfeit their contracts and begin the long, miserable journey back across the border to their country. Their dream was dead, and Chinedu was untouchable, flaunting his new car and expensive clothes back in Ivory Coast. I knew I couldn't beat him with muscle or money, but I could use what I had, the intimacy and trust I'd built during that month. I began to save every conversation, every transaction, every bank transfer receipt I could find related to his Port Harcourt deal. I also reached out to the boys' network, now scattered back home. I didn't ask for revenge. I asked for information. I compiled a detailed dossier on their individual talents, their training needs, and the exact promises Chinedu had made. My focus shifted from just exposing him to replacing him. I realized Chinedu's wealth was built on a fragile foundation, the next promising young talent. His business model was simple: find Ivorian talent, promise the world, steal the signing fee, and leave the wreckage behind. I decided to strike at the source of his operation. 18 months passed. I used the money I had earned from small side jobs to start a legitimate, modest scouting company called Enugu Stars. I kept a low profile, focusing on developing local talent ethically. Then I got a call. It was Jean-Luc. Chuka, Chinedu is back in Nigeria. He is trying to sign a new batch of boys, 15 of them, again Ivorian, from a village near Abidjan. He's promising a big European deal this time. My heart pounded. This was it. My revenge couldn't be a simple exposé. Chinedu would spin it as jealousy. It had to be a catastrophic professional failure that cost him everything. I decided to use his new victims as the lure. I quickly tracked down the European club director Chinedu was supposedly dealing with, a small, third-tier Portuguese outfit. I used my contacts to book a meeting, claiming to represent an emerging Nigerian talent pool. My mission: sign the director exclusively to my scouting firm before Chinedu could use him to finalize his fraudulent deal. I needed to prove Chinedu was obsolete. I flew to Lisbon. The club director, Senor Ribeiro, was initially skeptical of the young Nigerian boy in front of him, but I didn't talk about money. I spoke about the 10 Ivorian boys from Enugu, detailing their individual attributes, their heartbreak, and Chinedu's betrayal. I showed him the performance data I had logged and my honest, reasonable contract proposal. My passion was genuine. My records were meticulous. The difference between my approach and Chinedu's quick money scam was stark. Ribeiro, a man tired of shady African agents, was impressed by my transparency and dedication. He signed a 3-year exclusive scouting agreement with Enugu Stars on the spot. I immediately called Jean-Luc and gave him the news. Go to Chinedu's meeting in Abidjan, I instructed. Bring the other 9 boys, and when he introduces his 15 new Ivorian victims to the director, have them walk out. Tell Chinedu that the director he was counting on is now my business partner. It was a public, professional humiliation, orchestrated with surgical precision. Chinedu's reputation, his only currency, was about to be shredded. The scene in the Abidjan hotel conference room was chaotic. Chinedu, sweat glistening on his forehead, was giving his usual rousing speech about a guaranteed European future. Suddenly, the door opened and Jean-Luc walked in, followed by the other 9 former Ivorian players, all wearing customized Enugu Stars training jerseys. "Coach Chinedu," Jean-Luc called out, "we heard you are offering a great deal, just like you did to us 18 months ago." The new recruits looked confused. The plot twist? Just as Chinedu started sputtering denials, Senor Ribeiro himself walked in, flanked by 2 bodyguards, having flown back with me on a surprise last-minute trip. He stared down Chinedu. "I believe you were using my club's name for a deal," Ribeiro said coldly. "Well, your past clients have made a compelling case against you. My only partner in Nigeria is now Chuka and Enugu Stars. You, sir, are a fraud." The 15 new recruits immediately walked away. Worse, Ribeiro revealed that the original Port Harcourt club, now aware of Chinedu's theft, had filed a police report to recover the money. Chinedu was publicly disgraced and facing arrest.
Chinedu was detained by Nigerian police a week later, answering charges of fraud and embezzlement related to the 10 Ivorian players' stolen signing bonuses. His new car was seized, and his reputation was irreparable. The powerful, arrogant coach was reduced to a desperate man, begging for mercy. Justice was served not through violence, but through meticulous planning and professional excellence. I, Chuka, secured a legitimate, fully funded trial for Jean-Luc and two of the most promising Ivorian boys with Signor Ribeiro's club. My initial promise, to go to Ivory Coast, was a false dream, but the true reward was far greater. I had built a real future, an ethical business, and restored the shattered dreams of 10 young men. I was no longer Chinedu's nephew. I was Chuka, the CEO of Enugu Stars. The 10 original boys eventually became my loyal network of scouts and coaches, ensuring no other talented Ivorian youth would fall victim to a greedy uncle. The last I heard, Chinedu was facing a lengthy legal battle, alone and utterly broke, a cautionary tale whispered in the dusty fields of Enugu.